Hello and welcome back to our hardback memory book pages that we started making a little while before Christmas. Unfortunately, due to family circumstances, I've not been able to do any for quite some while, but we're back again and we're going to have a go at making another page today. So we're going to bring you down. There we go. And the page we're going to make today looks like this. And for this page, I've used CoolKatz dies. So I've made a little envelope, and it's got a little bit of depth to it. I don't know whether you can see. And I've made a folio envelope to fit inside like that. So that's what we're going to work on today. So if you remember, the book itself is, pages are 6.5 by 6.5, so, and then the book is 7 by 7. So I'm going to pop that one to one side, and I've got my base page at 6.25 by 6.25, and then my page that's going to fit on, which is just over 6 by 6. So I'm just going to put those to one side for a minute. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make my little folio envelope. Now for this, I'm using the CoolKatz folio envelope die, and that comes with a matte and layer for the main envelope and a matte and layer for the top. So I've cut some of these out in preparation. So here's the main body of it, cut out and ready to do. And then I've got the rest in pattern paper. And I'm using the Stamperia papers, which I showed you when we first started with this book. So you will have score lines there and there, across the bottom and across the top. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to fold along those score lines. And I'm going to use my Teflon tool to make sure that I've got a really good crease. And then I'm going to do the other side like this. And again, I'm going to turn it over and do the other side like that. And then I bring the base one up and give that a really good score, a really good burnish. And then the top one comes down, and I'm going to give that a really good burnish as well. Now, if I show you the one that I've made earlier, I've used a different closure to the one that comes with this folio die. So the one that comes with the folio die are two little circles, and you wrap the braid around it. With this one, I've done a swivel closure, so that I can show you how I've done the swivel closure. And as I've said, this page is all CoolKatz dies. It's just the way it's turned out. And I'm going to show you using the CoolKatz paper brads, and I'm using the middle size one. So what you get are the dies to make the actual brad pieces, and the dies to make the washers and the tops. So I'm going to make that first of all. Now I've used two of the little brad pieces because I wanted to have a little bit more strength. So the first thing I'm going to do is to actually glue these two together. So And I don't want too much glue. I'm just going to put a little bit of glue onto that and then just run my fingers over it and then pop the other one on, on top. So I've made it, instead of it being 240, it's now 480. Now I like these because they go flat. So it's not like having a metal brad where you've got a bowed top. So I'm then going to put a tiny bit of glue. Hopefully you can see, in a line along that middle. And then I'm going to very carefully fold each side in and fold that into the halfway and that into the halfway so that they stick. It's very hard to show you what I mean because they're so small, but they stick back onto the die itself, onto the die cut piece, and what you end up with is a split pin. And as I say, it's very hard to demonstrate because it is so small, but that is what you'll end up with. So you've pulled those two bits in back on themselves to stick to the glue that you've put in a line in the middle of the circle, and then you've got your split pin. Okay, now the other thing I'm going to use is a swivel closure. Now there are lots of different ones that CoolKatz make and other people make as well. I've chosen a very simple oval, and there are two parts to that. There's the outer part with a hole in it that I've cut in card, and then there is an inner part, which is the smaller die, which I've cut in the pattern paper. So I'm now going to glue that, and it is slightly larger, so it does actually go over the hole a tiny bit, but that's fine because the hole is bigger than you need it to be anyway. So I'm going to glue this onto here, a bit of glue on that, and I'm going to pop that onto there. It down a little bit, have a little bit more of the whole, showing. Glue's so good, it sticks so quickly. I do want to get it centered like that. Okay, so I've popped that on there, and then with my brad there is a second die set which cuts out the little washers, and if you want to cut tiny pattern paper to put on the top of your brad, you can. So I'm going to use two of the little tiny washers, and now this is dry. Don't put the washers on until you know it's dry. I'm going to feed the washers onto the end of my, sorry, can't think, talk and do at the same time, onto the end of my split pin. So I've now got two little washers on there which will help it hold in place and spin. And then I'm going to feed that through that little closure that I've just made. Now at this stage I need to get it positioned where I want it on here. So I'm going to the reverse. Now the important thing is I haven't glued anything down yet, and you'll see why in a minute. So I haven't glued anything down, but I am going to place on to here the piece of decorative paper that I want to sit there. All of this will make sense in a minute. So with nothing glued down, I'm going to fold down the top, and I'm going to position this roughly where I want it so that it will spin and act as a closure. And I'm going to find my pencil and just put a mark onto my pattern paper. I'm then going to get my pokey tool and, being very careful, I'm going to hold all the flaps together, so the two flaps underneath, but not right through to the bottom, but the two flaps underneath, and I'm going to make a hole, but it's not going to go right through to the front. So I'm being very careful, and then I can let the smaller flap go, because actually the smaller flap should be not quite in the way. So then I'm going to make that hole a bit bigger. I'm going to make that hole a bit bigger, and I'm going to make that hole a bit bigger. I'm going to feed my pin through the decorative paper like that, and then I'm going to feed it through the flap. Like that. Now the reason I want to do that first is because I want to open up the pin like so, press it flat. Sorry, the light's not brilliant today. And then I just want to put a little tiny bit of glue underneath those two pins. You've got those washers, so you can actually glue those pins down. So I'm going to glue that one down there, that one down there, because what I don't want is when I put something inside it for it to keep catching. So just glue those down. Now I can put a layer of glue along, well, let's start with I can put a layer of glue along there. I'm also going to put a layer of glue, now this is a little bit harder to do because you've got the paper, a layer of glue underneath the paper. I've put that one on the wrong side. Okay, let's just take that off, that should be on that side. So a layer of glue on the underside of the thin flap and on the outside of the other flap, and I'm going to put those two flaps together, and then again before I stick the paper down I'm going to put that on to there. And the reason I do it that way is it's much easier to glue down those two little split pin legs if you have it open. And then, making sure your paper is straight, you are then going to just go around the outside of your paper. So just lift it up, don't crease it, just roll it all the way around. A little bit of extra glue where you can, and making sure it's straight. We're going to position that down. So now you've got the two pins neatly tucked away and glued inside there so they're not going to catch on anything. And you've got a closure for the front of your envelope. So I've now got two, oops, that's moved a little bit, two little pieces to go on here. So I'm going to put one on the outside. Sorry, that has just moved a little bit. I might just try and lift it up slightly and just move it slightly round. That's better. It's isn't completely lined up. It's quite difficult to do, especially when you're trying to do it in a hurry. So I've got one that's going to go on the underside, like that. One that's going to go on the top flap. Like that. And then I'm going to turn it over and put a front on my folio pocket like this. So around the outside, and we'll pop that one on there. Now obviously you're going to take more time and care and make sure everything is much straighter than I've got the time to do, and then that will come up and hold that in place. So I'm going to put that to one side for a minute, and now I'm going to make the pocket. So this is the bit that's going to go into, and for that I've used the new CoolKatz die which creates this pocket. So I've cut one of these out, and again you've got all the score lines that you need. So glue all over me. I'm going to fold along the outer score line all the way round. So the outer score line first, all the way round, and that side like that. And then I'm going to score the inner score line, fold the inner score line like this, that one and the next one. Oops. Now this is 240. In fact, I think this might be 250 card. Sometimes from the people I get the card from, I can't get 240 and I have to go to 250. So it's quite a substantial strength, but it is still malleable. It's not that strong. So when you do a fold and a fold, you end up with what they call a little gusset. Not my favourite word. And then you've got two little bits that poke in. Now I am going to suggest that you glue these. It's up to you. I know when I watched either Maggie or Kay doing it, I don't think they did glue, but I'm going to put a tiny bit of glue on each of these little bits here, and I'm just going to fold that in and push it down. It just gives that little bit more strength. And the same the other side. I've got too much glue on there, and push it down. Okay, and then, sorry, the lighting really isn't very good. You should be able to see that on these you've got little squared off bits at the bottom here. So if you put a little bit of glue, just a little bit, it's coming out too fast, on there, when you fold it over, you can glue those bits into place. Okay, I'm just going to use my Teflon tool just to lift that so that I can press it together, so that you get a nice, neat, mitered corner. Now there isn't a die for this front, and I know Kay and Maggie from CoolKatz said they've made it this size to fit a Graphics 45, the smaller ephemera cards. So if you wanted something different, you do have to cut it yourself. I'm just trying to decide which side I like better. I think I like that side better. So I'm going to stick that onto the front like that. So it's just a tiny bit of cutting and measuring, but it's not a difficult job to do. Okay, so that is now ready to go onto our page. So 6 1/4, just 1/8 over 6, so 6 1/8. And I'm just going to go round the outside of this. Like that. And I'm going to try to decide which way up I'm going to do it. It doesn't really matter at this stage, I can turn the page. So, just make sure that's properly stuck down. Going around the edges. Quick wipe over because it's going to take a bit of weight, and then I'm going to stick the little pocket into the centre. If I had the time, I would probably measure it all up and make sure it is absolutely centred, but because I haven't got the time to do all of that, I'm just going to eyeball the centre. The wet glue does just give you that little bit of extra time. Whoops, I'll come back to that. I'll use this, and I'm just going to use something. I was going to use my Teflon tool, but I've dropped it on the floor. Just something to press down those flaps so that it's nicely in place, and then your little folio envelope will fit inside either that way or that way. Okay. So I hope you like that very quick page that I've done today, and I will try and get another page done next week. So thank you for watching. Stay healthy, stay happy, stay crafting.